Hello, welcome to our Moving Forward Thriving with My English Degree session. My name is Lily Cho. I'm the Associate Dean for Global and Community Engagement here at the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies. So let me say hello again in case you're just filtering in. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you virtually and to welcome you to this session. Once again, my name is Lily Cho, and I'm hosting, it's my great pleasure to host and facilitate this session titled Moving Forward, Thriving with My English Degree. Thank you again for being here. And I want to first extend a very special and warm welcome to our guest panelists. You will be hearing more from them shortly. But before we move forward, literally, I would like to acknowledge the land that we are on. This meeting is virtual, and because of that, we are not all actually gathered in the same space. York's land acknowledgement might not represent the territory that you are currently on. And I would ask, if that is the case, that each of you take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are on and its current treaty holders. I myself am situated in the area known as Takaronto, and so gratefully acknowledge that I live and work in the same territory as York University. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaronto has been taken care by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably care and share for the Great Lakes region, share and care, sorry. Okay, so welcome again to our guests, to everyone joining us on Zoom, and to this special event in our Moving Forward webinar series. During this hour, we will hear from graduates of York University's Department of English and how their degree in English supported their career journeys. These accomplished alumni, and we're so honored to be here with them, will share a little bit about their experiences and talk about the importance and role of the arts education in today's world, and provide valuable advice to students as you study and as you think about your future career opportunities. If at any time you need help with this experience or have questions for the panelists about the content, please click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen there. And our team is ready to help you. Now, I would like to introduce our panelists. And it is just my great pleasure to begin first by inviting Jennifer Gold onto our virtual stage. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, hi, good to be here today.
So great to have you here. Can you briefly just tell us a little bit about you?
Sure, I'm a lawyer. I graduated from York University in 1997. I did a double major in English and psychology and loved my time during those undergraduate years. I then went on to law school and went to Osgoode at York. So I was at York for quite a number of years and graduated from law school in 2000. Was called to the bar in 2002 and worked at a small firm in Mississauga, did family law and civil litigation, and then co-founded my own firm with a partner. The firm's called Wood Gold, and we are a firm that wanted to create a different workplace culture and honor the need for work-life balance in the profession. And in 2016, I joined the Women's Law Association of Ontario. At that time, you know, I have a daughter, and it was very concerning to me, the rhetoric in the media that I found to be quite misogynistic and racist, and really wanted to do something to, you know, achieve gender equality. in our society. And so I joined that association, which concerns itself with advancing women in the legal profession. So I often say, if women lawyers cannot achieve equality, then who can? So I've been involved with that organization for a period of time. I'm the current president, and yeah, that's basically it. And just a shout out to anyone from Scarborough. That's where I grew up. I'm of South Asian descent, and yeah, love Toronto.
Hey, Scarborough's having a major cultural moment. We'll come back to that. That's exciting. But thank you so much, Jennifer. So much to talk about in the journey that you've taken. But let me now turn to Nick Desroches. Nick, could I please invite you onto our stage? And could you please say a few words about you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lily. Hi, my name is Nick Desroches. I graduated from York University in 2012. I did a double major in creative writing and professional writing with a specialization in book publishing. I currently work for ApplyBoard, which is an ed tech company on a mission to educate the world through making international study more accessible. And specifically, I work as the marketing manager for ApplyProof, which is a digital trust solution for international student documents that was developed by ApplyBoard. And I'm actually in Ottawa, so a little bit further away, but equally nice city.
Thank you so much, Nick. We're so thrilled to have you in our room. And could I please now invite Shauna Heyman onto our virtual stage? Shauna, please, could you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, hi, and hi everybody, and thank you for having me. I'm Shauna. I graduated from York in 2005 with a double major in English and Communications. At that point, I went on to actually do a master's in PR and Public Communications in the UK. And really, since then, I fell into advertising. It was one of those kismet types of things that happens from who you meet and what you know. And I've been doing that for sort of the last 15 years. I work at one of the large Canadian ad agencies called Cossette on the business leadership team, which means that I lead a team of account management. So anyone who is client facing and dealing with basically getting all the ads and campaigns out the door from the business management side. I think something really unique about this that was important to me going into something that can be seen as, commodification is that there's really an opportunity to allow a space for teaching and for leading with kindness and not intimidation in an industry that's typically been known to, like, the longer hours you put in, the more value you are placed on you. And I completely wanted to do something that made the space more inviting and welcoming and to be a comfortable space for all kinds. So that's a little bit about me. Nice to meet you all.
Shauna, thank you so much. And last but of course not least, Tamer Ibrahim, could I please invite you onto our virtual stage?
Hi, Lily. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. So my name is Tamer Ibrahim, and I graduated from York in 2008 with a degree in English. And then after that, I went off to do continue to do my master's in English literature with a focus on early modern drama at Lakehead University in Thunder Bay. And then once I graduated, I entered the social sector, starting at an organization in the Regent Park St. Jamestown corridor of Toronto called Youth for Change, which empowered young people through the creative sector. So I was the guy that wrote all the tedious reports to our government funders so that they can continue replenishing our funds to maintain operations. And then a few years after that, I really took interest in the systemic barriers that young people experience when they are navigating, particularly the education system. So I joined the Laidlaw Foundation to oversee a program called the Youth Collective Impact Program, which helps groups of organizations come together to design an initiative that creates meaningful change for young people in communities across Ontario. So I oversee that program in partnership with the Government of Ontario, so the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, and Innoweave, which is an initiative of the McConnell Foundation, which is based in Montreal, that offers resources to help charities really optimize on their growth and create more impact in communities across Canada. So really happy to be here and join the rest of the panel.
That is so exciting. I'm so impressed by the wealth of knowledge and experience and care that is in this room. And I am going to just start off with a really basic question, not basic, but an important question. And I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to randomly pick one of you to answer first. So a little excitement in the room for all of you. And I will invite you to join in at various moments in responding to this question. But the question is, can you tell us a little about your time at York and your career path after graduation? And so in fact, Nick, could I ask you to start, please?
Sure. Yeah. So I started at York in the professional writing program. I was really passionate about book publishing, and that's really the route that I wanted to go. And I had a strong interest in creative writing as well. So I applied to and then got accepted to the creative writing program for my second and third year. And in my time at York, I really took some courses that made me realize I had a knack and an interest in technical communications. So I ended up doing my creative writing degree, book publishing courses, and technical communications courses all at the same time. And when I graduated from York, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I loved my time at York. So I thought, why not just continue in school? So I went to McMaster, did my master's in English, and I finished that, decided I still didn't know what I wanted to do, applied for PhDs, applied for jobs, decided I didn't really want to do a PhD. And I just started really earnestly applying to every sort of writing adjacent job that I could find at the time. And I ended up in a small engineering firm doing grant writing, actually a little bit similar there, and some technical reports. And it was a small firm, but it gave me a lot of opportunities to really grow and rediscover my love for writing simply about complex topics. And I actually found a surprising new interest at the same time, which was data. And so over time, I went on to guide the technical writing team. I became the government funding manager. I became an analyst for their angel investment arm. And then as inevitably it happens, tech comes calling, and I was eager for a new challenge. And so fairly recently in 2020, I made the move over to ApplyBoard as a senior writer with their strategic communications team, working a lot with the CMO. And, since then, I've really been focusing all of my career has really been about telling stories with data, specifically in international education. But after I was the lead author of our 2021 International Education Trends Report, I decided to take on another new challenge. And I shifted over to ApplyProof, where I'm the marketing manager now, focusing on increasing trust in international student documents. So it's a bit of a bit of all over the sort of writing scene, but it's been a great experience so far.
All right, Nick, there's so much about the journey that you've mapped out that I think will resonate and really in important ways with so many of our students. And I'm going to pick up on a couple of things, and then I'm going to invite Jennifer to jump in because I have a segue in my head. But I think one of the things that I find so valuable about the journey that you've mapped so far is the not knowing, that there is a really important and scary part of that, which is not having a kind of direct through line, and letting yourself be open to what that means. And the other part of that I love is of course the ways in which you've identified how tech and language and literature are actually much more intertwined than people ever talk about. That we talk about STEM and we talk about future, the economy and what future skills we need in the economy. But in fact, we don't often understand how important the kind of work that our English majors and English majors all of the continent do in terms of the tech industry. So that's so much to pick up on. But I wanted to turn to Jennifer and actually Shauna next in some ways, because there's a way in which I can't tell you how many students I meet who start their journey out of high school telling me that they want to become a lawyer, and it just is for them a very direct path. They just think of it as something where they're not going to pause. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about your experience of that, and then of course your journey, your time at York, and how you found your career path after graduation.
Sure. I'm one of those people that wanted to be a lawyer like from the age of 13. So, thankfully, it all worked out. But, I always had a plan B or a plan C because law is very competitive. And there are no guarantees in life, right? Like you never really know what's going to happen. And so, being very logical, goal driven, was, first choice lawyer, second choice, probably English professor, third choice, chef. Although in this economy, I'm glad I didn't end up with the third choice. But my time at York really prepared me for the practice of law and all the other things I do. For instance, advocating for women. It involves a lot of oral advocacy and writing. But for being a lawyer, like, words are the tools of our trade. And English in particular, I think, has given me an advantage because, a great deal of the advocacy I do is written advocacy. And in particular, I'm a family lawyer. So I have to tell people's story all the time. And I have to tell it in a succinct, compelling, and persuasive way. And English literature prepared me for that. I mean, it's a study of story, right? And writing about the story. And so I really value my time at York and the expertise I gained by doing a major in English.
Oh, Jennifer, music to my ears. but also, I mean, absolutely. But I mean, maybe later in our conversation, I'm so curious to know how you knew at 13. In fact, let me ask you, how did you know at 13 that this is what you wanted?
We had our first debate in grade 8. That was the clincher for me. I was like, what kind of job can I have that allows me to do this all the time? So
that's absolutely brilliant.
And it's not as simple for everyone, obviously. They don't have that moment requires them. And, that's okay. I think there are just, as you can hear from the panelists here, so many options and so many professions and occupations out there that I think, many of us, would enjoy any of them. Like, I'm fascinated by Nicholas. Wow. Just to kind of focus on that kind of technical writing, like, how exciting.
No, we have so many threads to pull on, but I want to invite Shauna to come into this conversation and tell us a little bit, because I could see that you're making all kinds of connections too as you're listening. But can you tell us a little bit about your time at York and your career path after graduation? And did it feel like a direct kind of thing for you, or was there a more exploration for you that happened along the way?
I'll be really honest. So when I went to York, I was really unsure what I wanted to do. And I picked courses based on the descriptions and what really sounded interesting to me. I knew it would probably be something in the arts. And in my first year, I took a second year English course because, and I said I would be honest, it fit my schedule. And I did really well in it.
Love that.
I did, I did really, really well in it. And I mean, not to say I would ever have been a perfectionist, but it really felt good to do well in something that I didn't know that I could do well in, or that was something I would be interested in. And my husband still laughs at me. He doesn't believe I read. He thinks I skim because I read so quickly, and I just enjoy it and I get lost in it. And I think the part I fell in love with was meaning and insights out of something that I might see differently than someone else, that you could create connections and tell stories, some more deep than others, but just by the way that you interpreted something. So I was really inspired by that. And I continued to take English courses throughout university. And then when I went off to do my master's, it wasn't a straight line into communications. It was, again, like, I really enjoyed learning, and I really enjoyed doing well in something that I didn't expect that I was going to do that great in. And when I did my master's, it allowed me to continue on the public communications path. Was that way of expressing myself, learning to communicate, not in a way that, necessarily you learn in a textbook, but in a way that felt true to me and the way that I thought about things and the way I viewed the world. And so when I say I fell into advertising, it was truly like I met somebody who knew somebody who needed to hire someone. I was living in the UK. I was on a student visa, and I was broke. So I got this, I got this opportunity, and I didn't know what advertising really did and was. But, in the last sort of 15 years, what I've uncovered is that exactly where I started with saying that English was interesting to me, is you find insights and meaning to connect with people. And I know we talked about it earlier, that it could be a lot of just like you're selling things people don't need, but there's a side of it too, which really is making people feel good about something, creating an experience or creating a connection through human insight. And that's sort of where it wasn't a straight line. I feel that so much of what I learned studying for, like the choice I made to study something that I just enjoyed, landed me into a career that I truly enjoy, because it's creative in its own way. And I have learned to communicate and, interrogate and really think differently and use critical thinking. So sort of my
Thank you. I love
line.
the candor. I love the candor, and absolutely. One of the things that I think about in terms of your field is, I'm a big fan of popular culture, so this is not, but we sometimes see shifts in student interest in majors based on something happening in the broader popular cultural landscape. And so I remember when CSI kind of took over, we had like a sudden spike in criminology applications, and then when Mad Men came along, there were students who were trying to figure out, how do I do that with what degree? And and so what's interesting for me is to hear about how that journey maps onto a certain amount of serendipity and openness to just falling in love with something. And so that's something I also want to come back to. But let me invite Tamer now to tell us a little bit about your time at York, your career path after graduation. And I know that there's so much passion that you bring to the work that you do. So please do tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, like Sean, I'll be very honest with everybody. And if this resonates with some of your attendees, I mean, I hope that they have an opportunity to find what it is that they're looking for. But my experience at York was, in the beginning, very passive and very transactional, in the sense that I was only ever going to classes because I was really interested in learning about English as a discipline, and I was very fascinated by the subject matter. I really enjoyed reading, but it wasn't until my last 2 years of my undergrad when I took a more active role in the academic community, because I think that that's the one thing, and I don't know what the conversations are like with prospective applicants into universities, but it was mostly about getting into school, learning, attaining a degree, and then getting a job, but without sort of learning about the added benefits of the academic sector. I mean, if I could go back, I think the first thing that I would want to do is job shadow somebody at the Office of Advancement. Manib, I'm looking at you, you're on the call. So, and learn a little bit more about the strategic thinking behind developing and optimizing on programs and disciplines at an institution like York. So one of the first things in terms of taking a more active role was, joining Founders College's the Phoenix newsletter. So that was after it had stopped, and then some more funding came in so that we can, bring the newsletter back. And the first issue was called the Rise of the Phoenix. And I wrote a piece about, going to York and saving your money. So I had like these little tidbits about like, this is where you can go, where you can spend 35 cents. Yes, 35 cents on a carton of juice. If you were looking for something other than water, that's true. It was at the grocery store in North Lanes.
Way.
That is true. That is 100% fact.
Tell you what I just paid for juice in York Lanes like 5 minutes ago.
So at York Lanes, the grocery store used to sell them for 30. They used to pull out the cartons. They used to sell them for 35 cents a piece, and it was perfect. Among other things. So I wrote a little piece about, what you can spend like $8 and have like 3 meals. Anyway. After I finished my undergrad, I went off to do my master's, again, taking a more active role. I became the president of the English Students Association, and I ran our literary magazine called The Artery in my last year just before I graduated. But I continued with early modern drama as my discipline, because I did want to ultimately become an English professor. And really my intent was to turn every one of my lectures into the Globe Theater. That didn't happen, but I found my passion elsewhere at an organization that was trying to empower young people who were looking for opportunities to learn, but outside of the traditional model. So these were young people newcomers mostly, between the ages of 16 to 29, who wanted to learn about fashion, film, photography, DJ, dance, and theater, things you probably wouldn't find in more traditional settings like in high school. And so I started at this organization just around the time they were being defunded. And unfortunately, they lost about 80% of their funding, but very serendipitously, the organization was shortlisted as one of two to receive a visit from Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, during his Diamond Jubilee tour. And so he came into this space, met with everybody, met the staff, had a chance to meet some of the young people. The DJ workshop mentor taught him how to use the ones and twos. They nicknamed him the Fresh Prince. It was like all over, like apparently it made the list of CNN's ridiculous, which is interesting to see that CNN highlighted St. Jamestown and Regent Park as part of their mainstream news. But what was interesting was a lot of influential people walked in behind him through those doors. So the government of Ontario, Google Canada, Inspirit Foundation, and so on and so on and so on. And so at the time we were being defunded, the executive director called me into the room and said, what we need to be able to do is pursue the people that walked in through those doors and get them to continue funding this organization, because all we had was a great deal of passion and conviction on making sure that this program continued, because it in fact over-delivered on everything that it had intended to do. So we pursued all those people that walked in through our doors. I was responsible for writing all the grants, designing a somewhat low-scale strategic plan for fundraising, and we were able to raise about $1.5 million to continue operations for an additional 4 years. And so that was my time at Youth for Change. The organization is still thriving and continues to do work now in the West End of Toronto. And so I then took a great deal of interest about young people navigating systemic barriers in their community, especially young people that are marginalized when they want to get a job or go to school. And so in sort of this, again, moment of serendipity, I joined the Laidlaw Foundation to oversee their Youth Collective Impact Program. And Laidlaw is really interested in putting funding in the hands of young people with lived experience in the justice, education, and child welfare system. And so recognizing young people that you said, you know what, I've been through the system, these are the barriers, and I have an idea or a program that I want to be able to implement in my community in Ontario to address some of those barriers. And so my program offers workshops, coaching, and funding for groups to come together, collaborate. Collaboration is very messy. It takes time. It's an iterative process to help to address a particular youth issue and move the needle on that youth issue. So very intentionally saying, we are going to reduce youth homelessness. We are going to increase the graduation rate. We are going to decrease the unemployment rate, and then designing a strategy to be able to do that work and hopefully implement it into your community. And so I'm doing that work in partnership with the government of Ontario and our awesome partners at Innoweave that are based actually, Nick, in your community, so in Ottawa. Yeah, it's been an incredible journey and continues to be very incredible. And I have tons I'd like to share about the state of philanthropy and the correlation between studying English and the changes that are happening in philanthropy later on as part of this discussion.
That is just so, my head is exploding. Like, there were so many connections, and what I'm so grateful to you, Tamara, for bringing to this discussion is the way in which you had, and I hate to use the word pivot because it's been overused so many times in the last 2.5 years, but you entered into organizations where things were changing really quickly, and you had to be very nimble. And one of the things that I have noticed about our English majors and the kind of skills that you get when you do a degree like English is you actually have to think pretty quickly. Surprisingly, like for an old-fashioned kind of discipline, one of the oldest disciplines in the university, in the history of the university, there's a surprising amount of quick critical thinking that you're doing as part of your training. And I know that that in your discussion so far, you've all sort of touched on the value that an English degree has provided for you in your careers in terms of narrative, the importance of storytelling, of succinctly engaging in your audience and grasping key ideas and communicating them like that I think has really come out. I wonder if you could connect some, I'm going to sort of move through that question, and move actually to a question about your courses at York and whether or not in your time at York there was a moment where you had a favorite course at York, or books that you read as an undergraduate that have stayed with you that you maybe would never have read, if you hadn't been an undergraduate English major. I tell our students all the time, take a course in something that you would never do normally. Read books that you would never normally choose to read on your own, because this is your chance to do that and you'll be surprised. And so, Tamara, you talked about early modern English, but I suspect there might be a post-colonial connection too in some of the philanthropic turns that you've made. And I wonder if I can invite you now just to pick up on that, and I'll come around to our other panelists.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say Art Redding's Contemporary American Literature course probably stands out the most for me.
Oh my gosh, Art was the chair who hired me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm willing to go down in sort of Art's personal history as the first person he ever caught texting in class. So I'm pretty sure I'm up there. I'm pretty sure I'm the first one ever. This tiny little Ericsson phone.
I'm going to write him right after this.
Please do. Please do. But I think that's the one course that probably stands out the most for me. I remember we read Ellison's Invisible Man, Willa Cather's My Antonia. Both books I don't remember very much, but Art was always very wonderful at describing, American culture of the novel, like things like escaping poverty, upward mobility, and Jim Crow laws. His course stands out to me, especially in working in philanthropy and grant making, and how we invest in community. So I think those are the couple of pieces that probably stand out the most. And sort of to your point around post-colonial literature, I think one of those things are probably what stands out the most for me is thinking about what's happening in the state of philanthropy right now. So for most of you that know or don't know, a lot of private grant making foundations, they have endowments, they invest in capital so that they can put it towards community-based initiatives. There is a movement that's happening in philanthropy right now to decolonize wealth, to divest capital and move it to indigenous communities and Black communities as well, because there have been reports that have been coming out that those are especially two communities that have been significantly underfunded. So those are probably the two things that stand out for me. I wonder if Art will remember I was the first person. I'm sure I was the first person.
I have a feeling he will. He's got an amazing memory, and that would have made an impression on him. But and I'm going to turn to Shauna next. But I just also want to say that a lot of what I'm hearing in this conversation that just fills my heart is how, aligned your experiences are in terms of York's longstanding commitment to social justice. Like, I have to say, we talk about social justice university and sometimes it feels like blah, blah, but it is actually kind of woven into a lot of the fabric of this place. And I'm hearing it a lot in your conversations here. So it really fills my heart. But Shauna, was there a particular course that really stuck out for you, that brought you to books you wouldn't normally have read?
So again, with my frank honesty, I don't really remember. I don't really remember the names of all the courses that I took in English, and I have to be so honest. But that said, I would have never found myself falling in love with Shakespeare in my, late teens and early 20s, and it's something that still, I'm so musically driven. I love musicals. I still watch all the movie versions of the musicals that are made from Shakespeare, from Les Miserables. And I know it sounds like it's not a direct correlation to what I do for work, but it's something that helped me succeed in my professional life, that so truly touched my soul in the things that I am passionate about as a human. Because I'm not going to tell you my age, but I graduated in 2005, so I'm not young, but my husband looks at me and is like, are you just singing? And it's like, this love that had for me to push and put the hours in and to want to study and want to do well and want to continue to thrive in my career. I needed those things. I needed the things that I loved about and that made me laugh and smile and cry. And Shakespeare was something that I was really introduced to. I believe it was Macbeth. So in really early university years. So that's my truth.
Oh, I love it. And it is, again, like, it's one of those things that you probably wouldn't pick up on your own, like it's drama, it's an iambic pentameter. It's just, it's not necessarily the easiest of reads, and yet so rich. And I love that it's stayed with you. We talk a lot about carrying things with us in our lives that give us joy. And that is actually part of growing up and being in the world, and that is also part of a university education. So I love that, and I love your honesty about that. Thank you. Nick, can I invite you to talk about a favorite course or a book that really stayed with you when you were here?
Yeah, I'm going to be that person who has a really, really weird one. So being in creative writing and professional writing, I probably read slightly fewer books during my undergrad than maybe the other panelists did. But one of the things that really sticks with me is in my 4th year poetry class with Priscilla Uppel, we had a whole bunch of different authors who were coming through and reading different parts of their poetry books. And at one point, she just kind of said, I have this collection of poetry books at home that I'm just going to bring in, and everybody take one.
Wow.
And she had, this was during my undergrad was 2010, the Vancouver Olympics, and when Stephen Harper prorogued Parliament. And one of the books that she had was actually a poetry book that was written, solicited, published, written, the whole thing in about 90 days around the proroguing of Parliament, and called Rogue Stimulus. And I actually grabbed that book off the table because she happened to bring that one book in. And, I read it every year when there's a Winter Olympics. So it's an apt year to talk about it. And it's actually one of the major pieces that I studied during my master's thesis. I actually ended up doing a master's thesis in Canadian political poetry. And it was all off the back of that sort of, we're talking about those serendipitous moments. It was all off of the back of that. And it just sort of really ignited my interest in that sort of collision and conflict, and yet, complementary nature between politics and poetry, and using poetry as a political statement, and being able to talk about complex topics in a way that's very different than sort of a longer form prose. So that course very much sticks with me to this day. Rogue Stimulus is always within reach of me at my desk. So
that is so beautiful. And having known Priscilla, so reflective of her pedagogical style, the generosity of it, the directness of it, the part where she says, take something of mine and keep it with you. And I'm quite sure it would have meant so much to her. And I'm feeling a little emotional because I became chair of English about a month in, and Priscilla passed away very suddenly, as you might know. And so, but her legacy in terms of the teaching and writing that she has offered to us stays, and she's so much a part of how York has understood the importance and beauty of poetry and language in the world that we're in. And I love that it's a ritual for you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Jennifer, I wonder if I could invite you to tell us a little bit about a course or a book that really stayed with you.
Oh, there were so many, so it's hard. I would say there were 3 or 4. One was Old English. I love, it was like learning a different language. And it was really interesting to see the history of the English language. Shakespeare, what a word smith, just amazing, his ability to create, with words and language. Post-colonial literature, definitely nice to see perhaps myself reflected in some of the literature. And I did my honors thesis on 2nd generation Chinese Canadian literature. So Wei-Sun Choi, Sky Lee. The 2nd generation experience is my own experience, except from South Asian background. But that writing really resonated with me at the time. So it's sort of an eclectic mix of things I liked.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, I love the way in which all of these books are part of how you've taken, for all of you, the immediate experience of your education, and also taken them out and refracted them into the world that you're in. And so, for all those people out there who sometimes think that the ivory tower is a little bit too enclosed and not connected enough to the quote unquote real world. I always want to say, Shakespeare is so much more a part of the real world than you think. and so this is so wonderful. I'm going to now ask all of you to think briefly about any advice that you have for our students who are, on the cusp of their journeys. They're looking up at you. And I remember seeing folks like you when I was an undergraduate student and just feeling like you were so figured out. and oh, Shauna, I hear you, because now I think, wow, that was really something what I thought back then. But I wonder if you have any thoughts or advice for our students who might be seeing and taking in the incredible accomplishments that you have brought to your lives and to the worlds that you inhabit, and what you might say to any of that. Shauna, I had you. Please go first.
I'm shaking my head, but I mean it with that, my advice would be is that you have to follow your heart and not do what you think is right, but do what feels right. Because I laugh and I say, I haven't figured out yet. I love what I do. It is hard. And there's so much kind of that is stacked up against you that if you're not excited about what you're doing and you don't make it about the money or the prestige, you just do what feels good. That's honestly my advice, because you're not going to feel successful no matter how successful you are if you are not waking up every day looking forward to what you're doing. So when I shake my head and say, oh, I don't know, I laugh. I do know. I'm very, very happy in what I do, but it is hard work. And sometimes I say, what am I going to do when I grow up? Like, Dad, how did you make me go to teachers college? So no. That would be my advice.
I love it. And just well, I'm going to come back to what you said because it really resonates with something that I feel very strongly about. But Tamer, please jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of the legal sector or teaching or the communication sectors, I mean, English and the humanities really have enduring value. So having an English degree is broad enough to explore many career options. So things like philanthropy and think tank institutions need strong critical analysis and strategic thinking to dissect social issues. So if you're more interested in, what do I want to do? If you're more interested in what do I want to change rather than what I want to do, then this is probably the path to take. And I think what's interesting is that in today's economy, philanthropy is less about, when people think about, granting, and they think about charity, it's actually less about charity now and more about justice. And what that means is that some foundations are much more motivated by divesting capital to underserved communities and supporting a cause rather than the actual donation of funds or granting. So there's a lot of deconstructing that's happening there and a lot of transferable skills in English that can go towards that. And philanthropy is also about understanding its own practices. How do foundations attain wealth? What do they do with their capital? Who's accessing philanthropic resources? And more importantly, who is not? If English literature is a lens into culture and human behavior, imagine how valuable of an asset that could be to the philanthropic sector. So, and then again, some of the things that we talked about, if your focus area is post-colonial literature, imagine the value you can lend to understanding and undoing colonial philanthropy, particularly when supporting, the two most marginalized people, Black and Indigenous people in Canada. And then the other thing I would say is, try to be in spaces where you can see and learn from leaders as they make big decisions. So join an advisory board, join a granting committee or a board of directors at a nonprofit. I'm the chair of the board of a wonderful organization called For Youth Initiative based in York Southwestern. And being around the table to make those big decisions, I think will give, aspiring social justice movers and shakers to see what the critical process is all about. So I just wanted to share that as well.
That is such good advice. And what's sort of reverberating through my head as you speak is that I was like, hang on to this, although hang on to all of it, is in addition to what Shauna talked about, the importance of love and passion, and that's so real, is that question, is changing the question, from what do I want to do to what do I want to change. And I think that really captures a lot of, I think, what everyone around this table has been talking about. But I'm going to stop talking, actually invite Nick to tell us, what your advice for our students might be if if you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I really want to pick up on that thought that we've kind of been talking about, that doing something that you love, and also that a lot of people might be studying English because of a love of stories, whether it's reading stories, analyzing stories, telling stories, that has value regardless of where you end up. When I'm hiring people for roles that are marketing, that are more data focused or anything else, we like to say after all of our interviews, I can probably teach someone the data analysis I need them to do. I can't teach them how to write a persuasive story. I can't tell them how to make that argument in a succinct way. And that's the value, that you get from an English degree, from a humanities degree, that makes a huge difference. And the other thing that I kind of want to pick up on, and it's the kind of thing that's in all the the news all the time, but if you have a passion outside of English, spend as much time as you like also doing that. That's not to say that what you're doing in English isn't valuable. It is an incredibly valuable asset that you will have for the rest of your life. But I started studying technical communications because I kind of wanted to get a job, and I thought maybe that would be good. And now technical writing is in huge demand. Data analysis is in huge demand as tech just kind of continues to grow. But building my career on writing about science and data just seems kind of like an antithesis to a lot of what people think about English students or people who have done an English degree. But I find it extremely interesting because I'm still telling a story about the data. It's still making that argument, pulling out all of those different pieces. When I'm writing about international students, I'm talking about the way that they've been disenfranchised, the things that have made it so that education is inaccessible to them, all of the different things that are, being able to put those arguments together and do the research and make that persuasive and concise are things that I learned studying professional writing and studying creative writing, as much as it seems like that is my less useful degree of the two. That concision has been really valuable. And so I think that if you have something else you're passionate about, it does not need to be data. It could be absolutely anything else. Do that. You're always going to love having something to fall back on, something to do with the rest of your time, just something that you can apply to what you're doing in your day-to-day and in your work. You would be surprised at how useful it is to have all kinds of different small skills. Like I said, I took book publishing. I learned how to use InDesign. I can't tell you how many times I have needed to do visual design in my career, despite the fact that I've been a writer for nearly a decade.
Amazing. And like so many connections between everything, all of you in the room. But Jennifer.
Oh my gosh. I agree with Shauna and Tamer and Nicholas. It everything they said, I agree with, and it resonated with me. So I don't have a lot to add, except I think of my younger self when I was studying at York, and I think of what I would tell my younger self. And that would be to really enjoy that time of your life, where you can just take a course that interests you and focus and really get deeply into it. And I think I missed that because life becomes very busy, and as you juggle family and work and finances and everything. And so I missed that period of my time of life where I could just focus on one project. I'm not saying it's an easy time of life, because you're always, okay, what am I doing next? Where am I going in my life? You have all of those pressures and insecurities, but there is a gift there to be appreciated. And I would also say, in relation to the idea of storytelling is, share your own story as well. Don't forget that. I think, the sharing of our stories is in some ways a humble act of rebellion, especially because our stories are so different and enriching and at the same time the same. And so I think that's important to remember as you move forward.
I love that so much, Jennifer. And I think I also want to recognize the courage that's involved in sharing your personal stories, and the courage that all of you have shown in sharing your journeys, the candor that you've brought to this sharing, I think is so key to how we talk about what we're bringing to the world. I have gotten a little note And there are a bunch of questions that we got from our registrants and in the Q&A. And so in fact, I love all the things that we've been talking about and want to bring them towards the voices of some of our participants and in the room. And one of our registrants asked before the session, when they registered, a really interesting question where it says not in the Q&A, but the question is, looking back at your undergraduate degree, what would you do differently? Is there anything you would do differently? I'll give you a minute to sit with that. Should I call on someone, do that professor thing, Tamara?
I will very quickly say, don't, looking back, I wouldn't make it so transactional. Immerse yourself in the culture of the university, in academia, and in the extracurricular activities as well too. And if you, this is a learning institution. So if you were to engage with another discipline or another department, they would be eager and equal to the task to share a little bit about the work that they're doing. So try not to treat it as a go to a course, attain a grade, maintain your GPA. Those are aspects of it, somewhat very one-dimensional, but immerse yourself in that culture. I'll leave it at that though.
Thank you so much. Okay, I want to say something, but I'm going to stop there and actually invite Nick to jump in.
Well, I was just going to piggyback off of what Tamara said. You know, I lived off campus my entire time at York. I lived about an hour away for a big part of it. But in my third and fourth year, I worked for Sport York. And I never felt more connected to the campus, and I never enjoyed my experience at York more until I did that. And I actually was immersed in you know, everything going on with all the students and the culture and everything else going on campus. So I do just want to piggyback off that and say I think that's, you know, really great advice is enjoy your time, explore your time at York. Don't treat it as just a transaction. Don't treat it as, oh no, I have to show up at 8:30 in the morning for a grammar class and then I'm going to go home and completely forget my day. You know, enjoy the time, take the time to explore. I probably spent countless hours every single week just wandering around campus just to see all of the different things that were going on and experience everything. And I think that's something that really sticks with me even today.
It's true. It's a small city, actually. You know, there are 56,000 students, and so there's a lot happening here. And you could spend so much time just soaking it in and never soak it all up. In fact, and that's so important. Jennifer, is there anything you would do differently?
Not really, no. I'm very happy with the choices I made. You know, both the study of English and psychology prepared me well for my career. I lived in residence and attended many events on campus. Perhaps looking back, maybe I would engage more with my professors and really appreciate the knowledge they had and their life experience, as opposed to just seeing them as an instructor delivering something to me and me moving forward with the work. But that's all I really have to say.
That's so important, really important. Thank you.
No
Shauna, anything you might do differently if you're looking back on it?
No, I don't think anything I would do differently. I think I would call out in particular, I didn't live on campus. I actually grew up sort of in North York, so I was really close. It was a 10-minute drive from home, and it was kind of the first time I felt like an adult, even though I was at home. Like I was walking around doing my own thing. When you live in a small community, kind of don't really like talk to people outside of it. And I just met random people because I stayed late and I studied and I got a coffee and I walked around and I did it because I was like, oh my God, I'm a grown-up. Like I'm here by myself. And I think that part really does stand out to me as I remember the feeling walking around the school. And I would say, I think Nick said something similar, just like walking around, seeing all the, everything that's really just around and reading the notice boards and taking the time in between classes, not to rush to grab the bus or, go meet your friends to eat, just like really take a deep breath and breathe in everything that's around you, I think is probably what I would do more of.
Wow, that's so important and so meaningful for me because this week we are reopening campus to 80% capacity, which is still a lot. And it's just been so wonderful to see students in our spaces and to see all the stuff that happens that's not directly connected to being in class, but is so much a part of what it means to be in university, I think. And so, I'm so grateful to all of you for pointing to that. We have a couple more questions, and I'm going to try to I can't combine them. So I'm just going to actually ask them. I mean, there was a question about a master's degree and postgraduate work in general. I wonder if any of you have thoughts about that, about what you feel about a master's degree and how you think about it. I think most of you have pursued that. Nick?
Yeah, so I mean, I did a master's degree that in no way has been helpful to me getting a job. No one is hiring a Canadian political poet for any reason. But what I will say is that, if you want to do a master's, absolutely pursue a master's. And there are industries where that can be an advantage for you, because you can talk about all of the different ways that you learned. A master's program is a little bit different than your undergraduate in a lot of ways. But honestly, out of all of the people that I've interviewed and hired over the years, the story around why they pursued the master's and what they learned from it is more important than the fact that they have a master's degree. There are tons of people that I've met that their lived experiences have been more valuable for what we're looking for. They've been able to turn those things into stories to be able to make a persuasive argument. And so I don't feel like a master's degree necessarily set me up for more success. It gave me a lot of anxiety when I started looking for jobs that someone wouldn't want to hire someone who only had a master's degree and no real experience. It all worked out in the end, but I would say I really don't think it's critical to what you want to do. If you want to do it, absolutely do it. But other experiences are just as valuable, and you'll be able to talk about those things, and they will impact and influence what you do after your studies.
Thank you so much. I don't know if any that I mean that sounds spot on. And does anybody want to add to any of that? What Nick just added? Or said, sorry.
I would just say do it because you want to do it, not because you think it's going to get you something or help something. Do it because you want to keep studying. You want to learn more.
Yeah, it's a year where you get to read more amazing things, and in Canada at York, a master's in English is partially funded, so that's something to keep in mind. Tamer?
I think both Nick and Shauna said it right. The only thing I would add is before you decide you want to go to graduate school, ask yourself, why do you want to go? So set goals first, and if doing a master's is part of that career trajectory, then by all means go for it. But that's the last piece I would add, certainly.
That is so helpful. Okay, now I'm torn because there's 2 other questions and we have 3 minutes. So what I'm going to do is actually ask them both in order to get as many voices into this as possible, but I'll only invite 1 or 2 people to respond to them. So there's a question about managing time and whether or not there was how you handled not enjoying your reading for school, which I think is an really important question. And I don't know. Does anybody want to jump in on that question? Was there any moment where you're like, I do not want to read this, but managed to do it anyway? Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, I remember I took a course, and I'm sure I can't remember the course now, but I remember one novel that I had to read was on the list, and I was going to present on it. I think it was The Turn of the Screw.
Oh yeah. By
I did
Henry
not
James.
like that novel.
It's scary.
The worst thing was it was my presentation on it was to be was at the end of the term, and I think the teaching assistant canceled it. And on it. No, I might have the novel wrong just because it's been a while, but yeah, you're not going to like everything you read, and that's okay.
Yeah, I hear you. Does anybody else have a moment where you're like, I just do not want to read that, but I did it anyway? A moment like that? Well, okay, while you're searching, I'm going to throw the last question in, because I do think that this is a question that many of our students do ask. It's just, from Harleen, how do you get real experience after your undergrad degree? Does anybody want to jump in on that question?
I think so. I'll just speak to my experience. One of the things that was really critical and has helped my career in inordinate amount is actually the amount of time I've spent doing volunteer work. Tamer mentioned earlier, like joining a board, being part of an advisory committee, serving in those kinds of ways. There are a ton of volunteer opportunities that you can contribute yourself to, where it's going to be valuable that you have an English degree and can write, can tell a story, can persuade. but there's so many things that there's so many great causes and great communities that are looking for individuals to lend their time, and you're going to be able to use those things in your career moving forward. That's where I got my basis in doing budgeting, for example. And I've needed that a lot more than I ever thought I would for for my professional life. So those volunteer experiences, I think, can make a huge difference, and they're a little bit lower bar of entry, I think, but they can make an absolutely massive impact.
That's great. That's great. Jennifer.
Sorry, I have to jump in because
Yeah.
I often, I'm involved in hiring lawyers, and don't underestimate the skills you get from your part-time employment while you're in university, high school, or whatever. I always tell people law is a customer service job. If you have experience at McDonald's, that's fabulous. I do not undervalue that. So just value every experience you have the opportunity to have. There's some value there. I'll end.
Oh, that is so great and so important. Thank you for that. I couldn't think of a more important note to end on, which is the importance. So for all of us and our students, especially, in knowing that the experiences they have are important and valuable, even if they don't immediately seem that way. And that part of what studying English will hopefully allow them to do is to see the value of those stories and those experiences, and to share those experiences in a narrative that makes sense in the rooms that they're in. Shauna.
One quick thing, because I think Nick said it really early on, is that you can teach someone how to get from A to B. You can't teach them thoughtfulness and, and patience and insightful thinking and writing and all of that. So I'd say that to me is one of the key things, if anything, is to remember that.
That is so great. And in fact, I know we're a little over time, but I do want to squeeze in that one of the things I've really remembered is that, when the Government of Canada surveyed major employers about what future skills they wanted in the future workforce, they were really surprised to learn that what employees were asking for were what we used to call soft skills, what I think of as future skills, which is critical thinking, cross-cultural communication, writing, and every employer said, we can teach them how to code. We can't teach them how to write. We can't teach them how to critically think. That stuff takes years. And in fact, doing a humanities degree, like an English major or an English degree, is so key to that experience. So thank you all for helping us to think through the meaning of the work that you've done, both as students and the work you do now. I want to thank all of our students for their amazing questions and for joining us today. Nick, Jennifer, Shauna, and Tamer, thank you. This has been so incredible to hear your stories and your valuable advice. I want to invite everybody to visit the LAMPS website for information about upcoming webinars and to register for our next one, which is Moving Forward, Women in Leadership. It's going to take place on March 8th, International Women's Day, I think. And you can find the registration link now in the chat, and more information will be coming on that website. So just thank you so much to our guests for being so generous and gracious and brilliant. Thank you, thank you. We welcome you back to York anytime. Come walk around campus. It is actually surprisingly wonderful here. So please do come on back. Thank you.